We went a little further, but we'll start at the very end on the third line from the top, Nun Zayin. We discussed yesterday the meaning of the words Makiv Hashayach El Hapnimi. A Makiv that relates to the Pnimi. And as the Rebbe explains, even though this is a Makiv, but this is really the source for the Pnimi. And the Pnimi, in effect, represents this Makiv in a Pnimishdike manner. There is a Makiv that is beyond that, where Pnimi has no, is not reflecting that Makiv. So he gives an illustration of this relationship. As in the case of Hashpoaz HaSeichel, we discussed yesterday the principle of Hashpoaz HaSeichel. Hashpoaz HaSeichel is different than Limud HaSeichel or telling the Sechel. Hashpoaz HaSeichel means to have effect, to bestow Sechel upon the talmid. To bestow it, it has to be presented in a manner that it's absorbed by the talmid. Like, for example, if one washes his hands or even his face, the water does not enter internally. There's an external experience of water. When one drinks, that water seeps through the entire person. And it actually reaches every part of the person, and it affects in every part of the person. As a result of drinking water, not only is he not thirsty, but everything comes to life, everything comes to action. Every koyach, every limb, the feet will act differently, and the hands act differently, and so forth. That's means hashpoah. Hashpoah HaSeichel means exactly that. That he is mashpia in a manner that the talmid is even though it's sechel, it goes to sechel, but sechel also is disseminated, because sechel is the beginning of the chayes ha-odom. Therefore, along with the chayes ha-odom, that's like the blood disseminates the oxygen, whatever the chayes that the blood brings, the sechel brings in ruchnizike and chayes of the person. Everywhere. doesn't remain a piece of information. So when you have hashpos ha-sechel mehorav el ha-talmid, and again, as we explained yesterday, this is from a Rav to the Talmud. A Rav and Talmud are what's called in Chassidus sheloi be'erech. They're in two different worlds, essentially. As we explained yesterday, the Rav, the sechel that he teaches his Talmud, is not merely known to him as sechel. That is not enough to go into the to be mashpia. This is enough to debate a sechel. Do you think like this? Do I think because sechel has a lot of variables, and it's versatile. As we said before, and sechel is 90. It shakes. It moves in every direction. Hashpo me'orav something is mashpia, something that he wants that this should actually be absorbed by the talmid, not that he should know to debate. Therefore, the Rav, as we said yesterday, must have something extremely clear and concrete and solid, doubtless, in order to be mashpia the sechel. So, but the rabbit itself, this is beyond sechel. But when he's going to be mashpia to the talmid, the only way to be mashpia is through the means of sechel. And then, in order to be mashpia the sechel, being that he wants it to be hashpor, therefore, at first, as he says, as we let's say inside Harei Mitchila, the first step for this hashpor is sechel horav seiver v'maki v'sechel hatam, where the sechel of the Rav surrounds the sechel of the Talmud. Essentially, what that means, he gets a sense on the surrounding manner of the presence of the sechel of the Talmud. In extremely simple terms, if the Rav were not conscious, were not sure that talmid has sechel, there was no way that he would be able to then begin to bestow sechel upon him. First, he has to sense the talmid and sense the talmid is a bar sechel. Not only is it, when being a bar sechel means that he knows to estimate his sechel level, and he is able to relate to it and bestow sechel upon him, to him. This is the seiver u'makif, a sechel hatam. This is where the Rav recognizes the presence, the existence of the sechel of the talmid and the sechel. V'hu ha-ohr. And that is the stage of ha-ohr, of measuring or estimation. Where first he measures the chushim, the senses of the klei ha-makabel, of the kelim and the capacity of the makabel, of the talmid. And then, in that manner, that which he is mishaya b'sichlei, that which he measures in his sechel, as ha-ohr ha-sechel, and in that manner, mishaya b'sichlei as ha-sechel she'ashpil. This is how he measures and prepares the oil ha-sechel that he will be mashpia to him. As we explained, I believe yesterday or the day before, that in truth, everything that we relate to, everything that a human being relates to, is in the category, in the realm of Oyer. Oyer is an intangible entity. Just as sight, it's impossible to transmit and explain to somebody what a color is if, God forbid, he doesn't have the means of identifying color directly. Doesn't have sight. He can relate to oir. He can relate only to the tangible object, but oir does not touch him. He doesn't have the chush for oir. There's no way that he can present it to him. The reason for that is, I said the oil is an intangible. It's an amazing thing. Oil is an intangible, and it's so real to the sighting person. It's not guesswork, it's very real. What is the reality of this oil? The reality of the oil is, in fact, that's like we said, that in sight you are directly connected to that which you are seeing, not how you take it internally to yourself. When you touch something, it is how the object affects you. When you see something, it is how you see the object. The object is in its own abode, in its own place. And you are actually relating to the truth of the object itself. This means sight. This is the phenomenal thing of sight. This is what we've discussed many, many times. Sight brings the world to a reality level in a person. And this is why somebody, God forbid, who is sightless, we say he doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. Why doesn't he have a Yetzer Hara? He can touch it. Because he can touch it. It's an imaginary reality. As we said many times, the Yetzer Hara is also not stupid. He wants something real. And if it's not real, imagination, he's not drawn to it. Only a sick Yetzer Hara is drawn to imaginary things. So, therefore, what is the oir? Oir, as we said yesterday, the day before, oir is a direct expression from the etzem, from the reality itself. This is why color is so real, because color brings to life, brings to you the object in a certain color, what the object, the message of the object itself. This is what oir has sechel. The Ayin of sechel is not the tangible element of the sechel. Like we explained many times, 1 and 1 is 2 ones. That's a tangible part of sechel. This is not sechel, essentially. Yeah, through sechel that you know it, but that's not, the power say, that's not based on sechel. Based on sechel is that 1 and 1 is 2. which is a completely different principle in different kind. This is only a sechelic concept. Only sechel knows of two. There's nothing tangible about it. And there's no way that one can train and teach a dog to appreciate the principle of two, like we discussed the other days. In other words, any sechel that's being taught, essentially it is just revealing that which the talmid already knows. It does not know it in a giludiki manner, in an identifiable manner, but he has the chushim to relate to it. Like if you are going to take a talmid and train him perhaps and have him experience a difference between this shade of white and this shade of white and this shade of white, he has it already. If he didn't have it, he wouldn't even attempt to do that. But it is through identifying, through practicing it, that he gets used to identifying it. Like it says in Shulchan Aruch, a Rav has to be able to identify the various shades of the color. So at first, how does he do it? He has samples, basic samples, and it's called it's makif. He puts them next to each other, and then you could see the difference. But eventually, he goes straight for it. Sometimes when it's difficult, he will take out the sample to help him identify the contrast. Doshim Shadal is that he already has it in his sechel. So the Chushi Kabel have to be identified by the Rav. He is talking to someone who has that knowledge. He's revealing that knowledge in him. He doesn't have it on the knowledge level, but he has it on an essential sense level. That's meant chush. Chush is a sense. Someone who has not been exposed to colors, for example. He does not know colors, but he still senses the difference between colors. Knowing is when you identify and says, these two things are different and they have different names and they're used for different circumstances and so forth. But the sense of it is there all the time. That's what's at the Chushi HaKabel. By practice, a sense becomes more acutely identified, but it's there to be identified. This is what the Rav has to sense, has to be estimating, and the Shayar, the Chushi HaKabel, in order to know the sechel that he is going to be mashpia to him, so that when he is mashpia to him, the sechel, that sechel is absorbed. It touches him. He can relate to it. This is what you said lately. Sometimes the extreme is most revealing. You have the man in the gutter, and you say to him, "Come, I'll take you home. I'll give you a shower." You're talking to him, "I'll give you a shower," not from the perspective that he doesn't know what a shower is. He can't relate to it at all. On the contrary, absolutely he can relate to it. If not for that, you wouldn't talk to him about Unfortunately, even then he could say, leave me alone. But you know clearly that he hears you. Just someone who doesn't have the koyach, this the moral strength to creep out of his hole. This is why when the rabbi is estimating the Chushi ha-talmid, and the talmid says, leave me alone, I can't get it. The rabbi will insist, no, you can get it. Sometimes he'll give him a candy to calm him down, and okay, now listen to this. This is just a far-fetched example. Like the Gemara says, and the Chassidim is on, that he says, Milsa de B'dichuse, Batchi Rabban. Rabbi said, become as and he gives also a B'dichuse, causing the Rabbanon to laugh. It's an amazing thing. Before the Shir, makes them laugh. And it says that what's behind that? To open their chushim. How do you open their chushim? By laughing. You bring them forward to you. And the chushim come along with them. This is what they are. So that they would know you're not talking to their sechel, you're taking to them. And this is how the chushim are opened up. This is the Batchi Rabban. This establishes a relationship, a closeness, person to person. And therefore, all the chushim are automatically open. They should act exclusively with their sechel. They will not absorb. This is not the koy ha-sechel is not what we're talking about on the chush ha-sechel, which is related to the essence of the person.
This is the makiv shayach to the panimi.
This is the makiv shayach to the panimi. Right.
It seems that this makiv the shayach to the panimi, it's not drawn from. It's, in other words, it's created by viewing the makabel. In other words, identifying on the outside what is fit, rather than being drawn from the etzem of the Rav Seichel, and then this is where the makif is drawn from. In other words,
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, believe me. Without going into lengthy discussions, what you're saying is not true. Definitely it is drawn from the big makif. I'm looking for a very simple, because I don't want to go into this too far, very simple illustration. We are here in this room, and we feel the comfort and the ease of being in this room, and therefore we can sit calmly. If this room were in the middle of a desert, would you feel the same way? You're in this room, but this room is on a developed street, in a developed city, in a developed country. there's a whole makif. There's a much broader and bigger and more basic makif from which this makif of this room is drawn. The specific makif is for the purpose to be able, right, to identify the sechel, to correlate the sechel with the talmid. But all makifim are interrelated. Chassidus illustrates makifim as the klipet b'tzolim, as the shells of the onion. One overlaps the other. There's a coarser makif externally, closer to the bottle is a more fine until the bottle itself is part of it. If you really want to peel off every last piece of clip of the bottle, you will take a piece of the bottle with it.
So even the hashira of the kli hamakabel is the Rav's essence of the sechel, etzma sechel. In other words, you're saying
Yes, definitely. And the Rav, this inyan that the Rav identifies the chushim of the makabel of the talmid, identifies his level of sechel. It is that sechel comes from his sechel, from his broader sechel. Like we say, one on one is 2 ones. It's also a sechel, but it's a much lower sechel. Where does it come from? From 2. I explained yesterday in the video. When you start teaching a child one on one, you don't teach him the concept of 2. You tell him, this is 2. See, count them up, 2. This is essentially going down to the level of 2 ones. But how do you know it? Because you're able to count them. Counting is 2 ones, essentially. But that already touches and says, oh yeah, there's more than 1. According to this in Yishaya B'sichel es ha-ohr sechel sheyashpia. This is the important point. He is trying to be mashpia to him ha-ohr sechel, the light of the sechel. Light means the truth of the sechel, not the compelling element in the sechel, the touchable, the tangible element of the sechel. Tangible element of the sechel is not hashpor. Like we say many times, and this is everyone's experience, you go in circles and labor and things like, oh yeah, of course. What is that of course referred to? That refers to identifying with the ha-ohr sechel. Because 1 and 1 is 2 ones. It's not of course. You have to count them every time. How many ones do you have? Nothing of course about it. It's being created as you make it. There's no previous knowledge of it. 2 identifies with the previous knowledge. Then you can say, oh, of course. I see what you mean. two ones doesn't exist previously. As you enter them, okay, oh, you made two ones. Shabiyim layi hashora kle hashoras kle hamkabel. For if there would not be this preconception and judgment of the klei hamkabel, yiyeh hashpos ha-sechel ba'oifa, then the hashpah of the sechel will be in a manner shelo yuchal lekabel klal, that the talmid will not be able to receive the sechel at all. Just as we said before, in the notion of colors, in order to expose a person to colors, you're not going to expose him to fine shading. You're going to expose him to clear differences. And if we're going to talk to him about fine shading, he won't know what you're talking about. Alkein tzorich liyes tchila. Thus, there must be first ha-ohr, this measurement, this estimation, shemeshayel klei hamkabel, where he projects the kelim of the makabel, umeshayel bisichloi, and then within his own sechel, he also measures oif and oil ha-sechel sheyashpi aloi, the manner of the oil ha-sechel that he is going to be bestowing upon him. What do you want from this talmid? I want him to recognize this. This is the hashorah. Hare, thus we can clearly see, ha-hashorah zois, this estimation, this measurement, should be b'chinas makif, which is only from a makif perspective. What is he able to understand? Zehu moker hapnimi. This is the source of the pnimi. This tells the Rav, find this pnimi that will be able to relate to this makif. Shebo hashpoas ha-ohr be'efim, where therefore the hashpoas ha-ohr comes be'efim in a manner shemiskabel b'pnimius klei hamkabel. That's what pnimi. Pnimi means, I'm not just telling him something that I know. Pnimi means that miskabel b'pnimis klei hamkabel. That's my pnimi. And that happens as a result of the makiv. Within this context, the talmid can understand. Outside this context, he cannot understand. This is it, gentlemen. Baruch Hashem. I think we have a chazokeh. What? Chazokeh, we started on time. Great day. Have a great day, wherever he's online.
Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
There are two